And when we sing another little victory song, precious friends, you will be there. Sing it in harmony. Precious friends, you will be there. Now it's your turn if you wish. Just when I thought that all was lost, that all was lost. You changed my mind. You changed my mind. You give me hope, not just the old soap. You give me hope, not just the old soft soap. You showed me we can learn to share in time. You and me and Rockefeller. I'll keep plugging on. I'll keep plugging on. Your face will shine. Your face will shine through all the tears, through all the tears. And when we sing another little victory song, and when we sing another little victory song, precious friends, you'll be there. Precious friends, you will be there. Sing it in harmony. Precious friends, you will be there. Precious friends, you will be there.
It's going to be another super brief introduction because these folks talk to me. Jana, who you can tell works at BARD, and this is a program, department leadership.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
she's been with us early on planning of this event. It's been really helpful to have her, and I'm not going to really do any introduction.
Thank you,
I'm
Brad.
not going to read. See folks do. They not going to read because you probably already have. But let's just go.
Sounds good. German efficiency. I love it. Thank you, Brad. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think now it's better. Thank you very much, Brad. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Jason. Yes, always a lot of work that goes into these kinds of programs, and I'm very grateful to be here with my students from Bard College. Also, thank you to Deirdre Dalbert, who is my boss at Bard, and it's an honor to serve under your leadership. So thank you all. I'm going to keep it very short, I decided, because I am so thrilled to have a conversation with my two panelists that I want to leave enough time for that. And I also want to leave enough time for a Q&A. Things seemed a little rushed. So I'm just going to start us off with a little snippet, and then I'm going to hand it over. And yeah, please, since we're going to be the last panel, hopefully we get to more questions this time. I teach at Bard. I'm also the director of academic programs at the Hannah Arendt Center, which is part of Bard College. I started a leadership group with a group of students there. And every year we host a conference. And this year we just had it, our annual fall conference in October, always the birthday week of Hannah Arendt. This year was Joy, Loving the World in Dark Times, and last year was Tribalism and Cosmopolitanism. How can we create a pluralist society? And I'm bringing this up because while I was thinking about this panel and preparing for this panel, I came back to a book I read for last year's conference, which was Sebastian Junger, Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging, and I brought it with me. It's a book that inspired me, and I handed out many times as gifts over the year because I think it's a great book when we talk about community and leadership. So I was going through the pages and looking at my notes, and I would like to read a short excerpt to you from the last pages. And then I have some comments, and then we'll take it from there. So Sebastian Junger, he's a journalist, in case you don't know him. He visited us for the conference last year. He wrote many books. One other book is The Perfect Storm, and then this a couple of years ago. In late 2015, while finishing this book, I saw a family notice in the New York Times for a man named Martin H. Baumann, who died peacefully at age 85. The notice explained that Mr. Baumann had joined the army in 1950s, contracted polio while in the service, graduated college under the GI Bill, and eventually started a successful job placement firm in New York City. The firm found people for top executive positions around the country, but that didn't protect it from economic downturns. And in the 1990s, Bauman's company experienced its first money-losing year in 3 decades. According to the Times notice, Mr. Bauman called his employees into a meeting and asked them to accept a 10% reduction in salary so that he wouldn't have to fire anyone. They all agreed. Then he quietly decided to give up his own personal salary until his company was back on safe ground. The only reason his staff found out was because the company bookkeeper told them. Bauman obviously felt that true leadership, the kind that lives and depends on, may require powerful people to put themselves last, and that he was one of these people. Bauman voluntarily, so I'm skipping over a short part, but Bauman voluntarily served this country, served his employees, and served other handicapped people by establishing a scholarship fund in his name. He clearly understood that belonging to society requires sacrifice, and that sacrifice gives back way more than it costs. And one more sentence. Skipping over a couple to make this fast. And then that sense of solidarity is at the core of what it means to be human and undoubtedly helped deliver us to this extraordinary moment in our history. It may also be the only thing that allows us to survive it. And while I was reading this, thinking about leadership, I liked how Sebastian Junger reframed leadership from power and a position to community building. When his company faced tough times, they all made a sacrifice, him including. I think leadership is at its core about belonging and helping others feel part of something larger than themselves. And this is the last thing I'm gonna say, and then I look forward to the conversation, but I think this may be our biggest challenge, an opportunity today to lead in ways that strengthen our community. My panelists today are both community workers. We already talked about how we're all leaders in different communities, so I just wanted to point out that snippet. I have with me Gulagu McLester here on my right, and then Alex Vitanov from Bard College further down. And I'm gonna just introduce you first, Gulagu, and then Alex, and then they're gonna tell us a little bit more about their work, and then we'll have some time for questions. Gulagu is a member of the Oneida Nation Wolf Clan from Oneida, Wisconsin, and was raised in a traditional longhouse community with strong ties to the Haudenosaunee culture, ceremonies, and language. Gulagu has a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Syracuse University's College of Engineering and Computer Science and is pursuing a Master's of Science in Engineering and Management. As a student, he has led storytelling events through the Native Student Program and has served as a speaker facilitator. And outside of school, Gulagu works hard to share his knowledge with his 2 boys and is a board member for the nonprofit Whose Land, a national project that emphasizes land history and rematriation. In his approach to leadership, Gulagu shares his indigenous values to foster truth and understanding. His goal is to help groups coordinate our collective knowledge to solve community problems, all while creating closer relationships with each other and the natural world. Thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to a conversation. I'm gonna give you some time for your remarks. Turner?
Oh.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you go first.
Okay.
Is it on?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sagoli, Gulhagu Niangets. My name is Gulhagu McLester. Thank you for that lovely introduction. So I wanted to, this part of this panel is about how to support emerging leaders. And for me, I have a strong, as was mentioned that my background is was raised in the longhouse traditions and those values, and those go back even further beyond the age of this country, and they were founded by the 5 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, and that foundation was built off of an understanding of a peace, power, and a good mind, and that further led to another treaty called the two-rolled wampum, which is also called the Silver Covenant Chain, that was signed and agreed upon with the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the first Dutch settlers. And what this depicts, I didn't have a picture, but if you can imagine two parallel lines, two purple parallel lines moving down the river side by side with each other. And there's white lines in between those that connect them and foster and bind them together. And those three things were agreed upon as peace, good mind, and friendship. This is a blueprint for nation building. Like, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to have this foundational building blocks of how to build these relationships. And they are here in our past, living among us. These are living documents. They are still honored by the Dutch consulate. We just had a repolishing of this covenant chain several years ago, where members from all over the Confederacy and other people's friends of the Confederacy came down and took a canoe trip from the heart of the Confederacy, from Syracuse all the way down to Hudson Bay, and met with a Dutch consular for those to repolish that covenant chain and to reinforce those values of peace, good mind, and friendship. Now, what do those things mean? Like, we can talk about those things, those foundations, and how they lay the groundwork for relationships in this world. And I think that is what is really missing in modern contemporary culture, is this understanding and these foundations of how we get along with each other, peace with one another, but also peace within ourselves, and then peace with nature. We've already heard a lot today about the different, relationships, and I've heard echoes of my speeches and my thoughts and my words, and at other times, people all this morning were echoing. I was like, oh well, I'm talking exactly like they're. I don't know what I can add to here, because they already have, spelled these things out already. But I bring these messages because that's what I was taught, is that these messages were meant to be shared, and it goes back to that foundation of that those five nations, and it kind of came through these treaties, and that was those peace, power, good mind, and friendship, and how those relationships and that friendship is built with ourselves, with one another, and with nature. And our values, our way, my way of life that I was brought up, was to recognize and understand that everything around us was family. When I talk about the earth, it was always referred to as Mother Earth, Grandmother Moon, elder brother the sun, and the three sisters, and so on. So my relationship to this natural world that is around us is fundamentally different than modern American society. And if you can imagine changing or trying to wrap your mind around how we look at the world in those relationships, and if you change those from resources, trees are resources, water is resources, and we suddenly look at them in the light that those are our brothers, those are our sisters, those are our mothers, those are our grandparents. How would we treat those in this world now? That would fundamentally change how you treat your brother, your sister, your mother, your grandmother. And I'm not saying that this is, everybody can get this or anything, but it is a foundation, and it changes how you think about how you walk through this world. And we also have a lot of young people, and I really appreciate at our table we talked about hope, and being a semi-young person and being in college, I'm around them, and I feel that pain as well. Um, and I understand that loss of hope, and I wanted to share this as I shared it at my table, but I wanted to share uh, the idea of perspective and the importance of it. And the only way to get perspective is is with distance. I made the example of having water and looking at that and seeing the tiny little, speck in the water. Like, oh, that water is ruined. Well, let me take a step back. Like, well, there's more. There's water here. There's water outside. There's water at the lake. There's water in the ocean. There's water, in the solar system. There's water everywhere. And suddenly that problem, that lost hope that my water is ruined, isn't so crushing. And that if we take a step back, we take that distance and that time to consider, well, how do we, take care of that water, that brother, that nurturing life that's in us, our Mother Earth, if we don't take on, and focus on such horrible problems, because there are horrible problems in this world, and we kind of take a moment to be like, hey, we all want this. We all want something better. Just take a deep breath and realize there's something bigger than all of us. And I know that's, and that can be whatever anybody wants and whatever everybody, choose it to be. And I hope that those takeaways are that you find the strength in those relationships, that you find hope again. Because I know I've been there. I've been with lost hope. I know that feeling. I know that despair. I've experienced that, and it's not fun. But those are the things that have helped me, and those are the things that have got me through those dark times. And having those foundations are what got me through those times. I think that's about it.
Thank you very much, Galaku. And I'm going to hold back because I kind of want to immediately jump to questions. But just to say that the fact that you bring up the natural world, something we haven't talked about all day, and your vision for your leadership in context of living with the environment and nature, I'm just very grateful that you're here on this panel with us. So thank you. I'm going to now introduce Alex and then questions. Alex, I've known for a couple of years now, 2, 3. He's worked with me at the Hannah Arendt Center as a student fellow. We worked really closely together for a couple of years. He just graduated from Bard. He is now a research associate at the Center for Strategy and American Statecraft Hudson Institute. He holds a BA in politics and music from Bard College. In 2024, he won the Sportsman Scholarship. And while at Bard, Alex founded and led the Musical Mentorship Initiative, which works to make musical education accessible to all. Today, he continues to be associated with Bard through Hannah Arendt Center and the Center for Civic Engagement. And Alex is originally from North Macedonia. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Jana. Is this working like that, or do I need to take it up? It's good. Take it up. Okay. I thought it would work, but okay. I think this is much better. Yeah. Okay, so it was great hearing from everybody today, and thank you. You've given me a lot to think about, and I also want to say thank you to Brad for organizing this, and for everybody else involved, and especially the dining stuff. I thought the lunch was great, and especially the chocolate mousse. Thank you for that. So we were called here today to talk about what should we consider when thinking about supporting emerging leaders. And the first two things that come to my mind are mentorship and education. I think those are probably the most important things when it comes to supporting emerging leaders. So in my opening talk, I will try to keep it as brief as possible, although I will be reading quotes a little bit, just like you. I will try to keep it brief and essentially throw out some pieces that I believe belong to this puzzle that we're trying to put together today. And hopefully through our conversation, we'll be able to do some of that. Um, let's first address the topic of mentorship. So during my time at Bard and to this day, I have received support from multiple mentors that I have found there and throughout my life. And I think that this is very important for every young person to have a mentor and to have mentorship support throughout their journeys. Bard does a great job at this. There are multiple institutional departments that do this work, but also some of the faculty are very good at this as well. So when I talk about mentorship, how can educational institutions do this? I believe there are three factors at play here. First, we have obviously the faculty who is instrumental at this and thinking about how can we support young leaders by introducing them to different organizations and different ways of thinking about how can young leaders engage in the world. I think this is very important. I know today here we have a number of people that work in education, so I thought this was an important point to stress on. The second thing is that there are institutional departments and organizations that work within institutional organizations. So BARD, for example, has a career development office, which is great. There are different programs that are leadership centered, like the Trustee Leader Scholar Program and the Center for Civic Engagement. Those were instrumental in my development at BARD. So I think these are very important. Also, student governments. Some of you mentioned that earlier. One of the panelists mentioned that you were part of student governments. I think those are great as well. And the third point I wanted to stress on is national organizations. I think these are also great. At BARD, my initiative was able to secure one of the national grants, which is called Davis Peace Project Prize, and this allowed us to go to Kenya for a summer and organize a summer camp for about 150 children from the slums of Nairobi and Mombasa in Kenya. And nothing, nothing helps young leaders learn leadership than going out there in the world and doing things like this. So all that being said, my point is that working on strengthening some of these aspects and improving them is crucial. Now, the more the more difficult education. So education is much more complicated, and I could probably not do it justice, but I decided on an approach today, so we'll see how that goes. I would like to bring up some of the ideas on Hannah Arendt on education. I'm associated with the Hannah Arendt Center at Bard, and which works to promote her ideas. Hannah Arendt is a world-class, extraordinary thinker whose ideas, and especially on the issue of education, I believe are worthy of our consideration. So just a brief introduction for those of you that don't know about Hannah Arendt. She was born in Germany in 1906. She studied philosophy under some of the greatest philosophers of the time. She fled Nazi occupation and moved to France, where she was actually imprisoned in a detention camp. She escaped and finally moved to the United States, where she wrote some of the most important literature and philosophy on politics, on philosophy and politics. She was connected to Bard College through her husband, who taught there, and through our current president of the college, who was her student back in the day. So the 1950s was a period in her life when she taught at universities, and she wrote a series of essays, amongst which was The Crisis in Education, which she wrote in 1954. In this essay, Arendt explained what she thought were the root causes of this crisis in education. It is a very complicated essay, and my rough summary will probably not do it justice, but I would like to bring up some of her ideas on this issue that I think we ought to consider when we think about how to support, how to best support emerging leaders. First, she saw a crisis of authority. We had the first panel today talk a little bit about this, about the necessity of thinking of our past and our ancestors. She connects authority with rules and traditions and claims that the loss of authority is a problem for education, as education needs authority. We had somebody else, I think, Deirdre, you spoke how sometimes the students are skeptical of some of the ideas that they're being introduced in the classroom. So I think authority is something that we ought to think about a little bit more. And so um, she wrote, you know, in education, we deal with teaching young people who are still working to develop an understanding of the world. And so there must be a sufficient level of authority present for this to take place. And this is especially important in American society where people are used to questioning everything. And so this is difficult to achieve, and yet she thinks that this is important and we should think about. Further, the second argument that she makes is that, now I'm quoting her, we must decisively divorce the realm of education from others, most of all from the realm of political life, in order to apply to it alone a concept of authority and an attitude toward the past which are appropriate to it, but have no general validity and must not claim a general validity in the world of grown-ups. And for her, the political aspect of education in America is dangerous. This is why she wants education to be kept separate from politics. She writes, because in politics, we always have to deal with those who are already educated. However, whoever wants to educate adults really wants to act as their guardian and prevent them from political activity. So this here, I think, is a very strong point that she makes, which is that basically whoever adults, and this includes college students, don't really need to be educated, but they need to be persuaded through ideas and conversations. And if we come to the classrooms with preconceived notions of how students should think, then she believes what we do is we steal the opportunity for them to develop their own ideas. And especially on the issue of critical thinking, this prevents the students from the ability to develop those critical thinking faculties. So this is another point that she brings up. Now, the third point is that for Arendt, the essence of education is natality, or the fact that we as humans are born in this world, which has been made before us by the living and the dead. She wrote, human parents, however, have not only summoned their children into life through conception and birth, they have simultaneously introduced them into a world. In education, they assume responsibility for both, for the life and development of the child and for the continuance of the world. These two responsibilities do not by any means coincide. They may indeed come into conflict with each other. The responsibility for the development of the child turns in a certain sense against the world. The child requires special protection and care so that nothing destructive may happen to him from the world. But the world too needs protection to keep it from being overrun and destroyed by the onslaught of the new that burst upon it with each generation. Later on, she continues, exactly for the sake of what is new and revolutionary in every child, education must be conservative. It must preserve this newness and introduce it as a new thing in an old world, which, however revolutionary its actions may be, is always, from the standpoint of the next generation, superannuated and close to destruction. So here, she identifies education as being the point at which we decide whether we love the world enough to assume responsibility for it and save it from ruin, which, unless for the new, it would be inevitable. And so, intimately understanding of the role of education is also crucial for improving the quality of education. For Arendt, how to resolve this crisis, she offers us this. A crisis becomes a disaster only when we respond to it with preformed judgments, that is, with prejudices. Such an attitude not only sharpens the crisis, but makes us forfeit the experience of reality and the opportunity for reflection it provides. Thank you.
Time moves differently when you are up here. I cannot believe we have 15 minutes left. So I have all of these questions, pages of questions, but in the spirit of possibly just maybe putting myself last, I wanted to see if there are any questions since this is the last panel of the day and just like immediately turn it over to you. Otherwise, I can also get us started, but there were a lot of hands earlier that were not able to say anything. Yes, Katie?
Wasn't entirely prepared. I would like to ask, if you could pronounce your name and
Kalha.
you spoke about values and having a foundation. Could you speak about the relationship between leadership, good leadership, and that idea of values? Would you actually elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And these were in some of my other notes. So in order to in our culture, there are a few things that are required to take on what we call a title holder. These require um, owning a home, having children, and developing skin 7 spans thick is what they call to become. These are the things you have to develop and have to have in order to become a chief or a title holder. And what if you break those things down, what those understand is like caring for your home, caring for, being resourceful, being, adaptable. If, anybody's taking care of their home, well, things break down. You have to adapt and you have to come up with solutions in order to do that. And then you can take those solutions and you can be able to help. It trains you, it teaches you how to go out and help other people. Children, you seen my guys running around here outside there. They teach you patience, incredible patience. I know we have young people here, but one day you may have a dog or something, or not, or maybe just bad roommates, that teach you patience, and that is so required in order to deal and work through and with people. Those are things that are absolutely required to be a leader. If you have no patience, nobody was going to listen to you. They will shut off immediately. If you walk into a room and kick over a vase or kick over a chair, nobody's going to stop to listen to whatever you already said. You've already lost it. And those are the things that it takes. And then growing that 7 span thick skin is to be able to um, take criticism. And sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes it's awful, but you have to learn to develop that in order to, okay, here's somebody's plight and kind of empathize with that. All right, okay, what is their problem? Where is this real hurt coming from? And that's the patience, that's the understanding, and being able to take that on and not, you know, crawl under the bed and cry the rest of the night. It takes time, and that is part of, for us, has been what it means to be a leader. And that doesn't always happen. It's just the way our society has evolved and changed. I'm not dressed in my traditional clothes right now. We've adopted and we've grown, and our societies haven't, they they're those boats that I was talking about at the beginning, they go side by side and they're meant to have us pass knowledge back and forth, but to respect each other in their path. You go down your path, I go down my path. We respect and understand each other, that neither one of us is the leader. We are allies in that river of life. And so we have to have these fundamentals understood in order to continue that. Otherwise, boats crash, people sink, drowning, all the terrible things that happen out of that. But those foundations need to be laid in order to build those relationships, in order to lead. If I have no relationship, well, even I talked earlier about the Dutch, like, and the Haudenosaunee, they did not speak the same language. That came from the relationship building, the understanding, and the respect, and that's how they came to this treaty and to establish these foundations. And that's what it took to become a leader. The rules and the playbook is there. How many people have heard of that story before? It's, to me, it's common knowledge. And I'm very fortunate that I grew up in a time after, the civil rights movement, that I was able to be born into that. My parents, my grandparents were not born into that world. They did not have these fundamental foundations. They came from a different, perspective. But I am so grateful and thankful for that they pushed me ahead to that. You know what? That's all I know, and I'm very fortunate and thankful for that.
Maybe, yeah. Just a quick, no. Yes. Just a quick comment, and maybe a follow-up question. You said caring for the world, and that care came up before. And so I just want to go a step back, since we're talking with emerging leaders and coming out of college, starting jobs. In order to be a leader, you need to have a vision first, right? And I'm hearing that there are different ways of learning about the vision, the world that you want to create as a leader. This could be through mentorship, education, family. And then there are leadership positions you're automatically in, like as a father, as a parent. So I just want to quickly hear from both of you that transition from college to work. Just thinking about my own college years, I was pulled into many different directions. Thinking about what I want to do with my life, where do I want to be a leader, what are the causes to fight for our days only have 24 hours. So, when you think of I just want to bring it back to like a more concrete way of talking about leadership in that transitional period between college and becoming a leader in your work, also maybe in a volunteer position or a nonprofit organization outside of work, but your professional sphere. Was that clear, or was that, yeah? Just experiences and maybe obstacles and things that are still unclear and that you're still searching for, and things you would have loved to have, maybe. I know you, Alex, already talked about structures at BARD that were really helpful. I'm gonna just hand it over. Alex, maybe if you want to go first. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank
sure
you.
thing. Well, I just graduated last May, and I'm new in the workforce, so I'm still learning. I'm finding my place in. But I guess I think at the end of the day, I've always been a person that always looks for new opportunities, and sometimes the job that you're doing or the place that you're in might provide those opportunities, but sometimes it might not. And so it might take you venturing out there and looking for new things. I have an approach where I reach out to people that I've met throughout my life regularly, and I ask to meet with them and to consult and to ask questions. And this has been serving me very well. And I would definitely recommend it to everybody, especially the younger people. And This way, this is the way how I've been able to find new challenges and also new opportunities for growth and also for leadership. So there's that.
Yeah, I like just to echo a lot of the words that he mentioned. Building those relationships, and also, and it's kind of the same thing, but taking risks, I think, is very important, especially in this day and age. I know that is the most terrifying thing for young people, is to be out in front, to be you know the black sheep, or especially with social media, like, you can't do anything without it being reposted, and fear of that or being a laughing stock. But I challenge you to take those risks, and exactly what he was saying is, like, those risks of being uncomfortable, and our chances for learning, and they build new relationships that you may have never had, that could lead to job opportunities, to lifelong friendships, and then keep those up, keep those relationships growing, because that's once you have all these things, this foundation that I'm talking about, that's how we generate. And I spoke of this at the beginning. You have a peace, you have this good mind, and you have friendship. This leads into what I've talked about, is power. And I heard it this morning, people talking about power, and not power in the Western sense, but the power of creation, the power of brainstorms, the power of coming together, the power of building community, and the power to move and make that change that we are all desperately wanting so bad. Like, that's why everybody's here today, because we want to see and find a pathway to change, because I think we all believe that there are better ways than the way that the world is working right now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much from folks sitting down here.
Yes, Malia. Microphone is coming.
So you mentioned like risk taking and always moving ahead and thinking ahead and moving forward. But how would you advise someone young like me to like still be ambitious but also balance our expectations without losing faith in ourselves and like our abilities and society in a way? Like balance being ambitious with expectations without losing faith in yourself and your abilities. Yeah.
I would say it's a constant balance. Everything is. I have an exam on Tuesday that I need to be studying for. It is a strong balance in you. It's tough, and you have to constantly weigh that, and weigh the risks. But if there is a chance, and I can't remember, somebody was just recently telling me about um about being young. You have the opportunity to fail, so take that big risk, jump off that cliff and jump into the water. Like, yeah, you might break a few bones, but you'll be all right. You still have plenty of years ahead of you to heal from that and to learn from that. So right now is the opportunity to take big risks. But you're still going to be all right. That's when you have that foundation, you have that support of friends and the relationships to be that fall net, to be like, all right, I messed up real bad, but oh my God, I embarrassed myself. You know, it's always bigger in your head. And like when you share that, and I talk about this with my son, when he has, sharing that and talking about that, it lessens that own self-doubt within you. Like sharing that with another person, that's where that power, that healing, that lessening of grief, it comes from that, because that's what a community does, is we are here to help each other, to prop each other up, to be there. That's why we have parents and relations to pick you up when you fall down and skin your knee. Like, that's what we want you to do, and all of us should be doing, to do it while you're young. It's harder to fall down when you're 80 than when you're 20. It's just a reality. Like it sucks. I'm almost 40 and I've thrown my back out this year and it's not fun. It hurts, but it happens. But don't be afraid of taking those risks. Um, you're gonna be rewarded for them, for the learning, if nothing else.
I think we have time for one more question. One more.
Taking risks. I knew an artist from Scotland. He said the worst painting I ever did was the one I never started.
Yeah.
So, another question? Yeah. Go ahead, Jana.
I think there's somebody behind you.
I saw a couple hands. Marty and Kara. Yeah, Marty.
At 80, it's easier to fall down and harder to get up.
Ah, there it is. I'm still learning.
Here's one.
Because it's more of a reaction if you can respond to it. But what I see, I can say, that with the Native American upbringing and what you focus on is really body, mind, spirit. It's your training. And then what you're talking about is more about education, which is really more the mind. And so when you have an example that you can, those things that you learned as a child, you always have and you reflect on nature as your teacher, is always there around you. Yes. And it's so powerful and it has balance. It has everything that you need to really survive. And so it's kind of a comfort from some of the upsetting conversations that have appeared that that's where you can find balance and it's always there. And whether if and then as society and as you get older, go to school and it all becomes in your head. And so the spirit and the body is not treated with the same respect. But you always have your foundations, which I think all of us have when we grow up with parents and family and what have you. But your culture seems to just really focus on it and have nature as a teacher. And we talk about mentors in college and so forth, but everyone in your life growing up was a mentor and continues to be. So I don't know if you still know.
Yeah, exactly. Like yes. Yes, everybody and everything is a mentor. I can talk to you about how, professors have helped me. And then they became friends. I go hunting on my professor's land and then that becomes a mentor, having the patience to stand out in the cold for hours waiting for that moment that may come or not. And sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it fails. And that's being a mentor, like teaching you. The natural world does teach you. And you just have to kind of expand your mind and open your mind on what a mentor really is, because it's all around us. Like I'm an engineer, so I can look and find something interesting everywhere. But I'm also Haudenosaunee. I can find family everywhere. And that's my wife was mentioning being alone at times, but never being lost. And that's comes from me, and that's what we have to find within ourselves is, where, you know, where you really are and who you really are. And that helps to understand if you can look through your past and look through your teachings. We all have those connections. We just have to find them.
Okay. All right. One last question because we do want to make time for the roundtables.
Okay, Alex, try to answer this one quickly. Hannah Arendt talks about love of the world, and I'm thinking about we sort of talking about education and the natural world in our minds and our hearts, and what does she mean by love of the world? She's located between politics and philosophy, right? What is that space? Because I think it's important for us to sort of think about what she gives us in terms of that goal.
Yeah, I think Arendt when she speaks about loving the world, most of us, and most of us love some aspects of the world and hate another ones. And um, but when she talks about loving the world, she means loving the world as it is, as it is, with all of its bads and with all of its goods and all of that. And then she hated being talked about as a philosopher. She wanted to be referred to as a political thinker. And so this idea of loving the world as it is and not necessarily accepting it or rejecting it, but I guess understanding it and then taking responsibility for it. I think that was her philosophy. And I think that's a very healthy way of looking at it too.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And thanks for bringing it back to Hannah Arendt too. One quick note. Galagu, you said friendship twice, and that was also very important to Hannah Arendt. And so maybe we can think about the difference between friendship and mentorship. And friendship is a kind of world building between two equals where we have a space to share ideas, different viewpoints. And so, yeah, I'm happy to chat more with you about Hannah Arendt, but the friendship aspect stood out to me because that hasn't been mentioned before either. And you brought it up a couple of times. And yeah, that was very important to her too. Sharing ideas between friends and imagining a community between friends and belonging to a community, something that is very important, especially when we're all on social media and in like the virtual worlds, to come together and actually talk. Thank you very much.